And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be thinking of one takeaway from each and every playoff game that took place so far in the wild card. So we're going to go ahead and start this list off with the Chargers game going up. The Chargers, they matched up against the Texans over on Saturday. And the Texans, they made short work of the Chargers. And I think the biggest takeaway that I got from this game is that you cannot rely on Justin Herbert's right arm as much as we previously thought that the Chargers could. Like, when the Chargers drafted this guy, I thought that, there were some issues on the defensive side of the ball that were out of Justin Herbert's control. And there were a lot of things that were preventing Justin Herbert from being a really respected and talented quarterback in this league. And it doesn't really seem like the narrative of him being a top talent is starting to pan out the way that I initially thought going into this. And with Justin Herbert and the Chargers, they ended up losing another easy, well, not really an easy game, but a game that they were favored to win in, because the last time they made it to the postseason with Justin Herbert, they played against Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, and then they ultimately ended up blowing a lead after Trevor Lawrence threw, I want to say maybe he threw 3 or 4 interceptions in the first half, and they still were able to, the Jaguars, they were still able to find a way to win, while Justin Herbert was rather quiet going into the second half. And similar to that game, Justin Herbert didn't really do much in this game. In this time, it was him who was throwing all of the interceptions. Now, throughout the whole season, he threw only 3 interceptions, but in this one game, he threw 4. Which is unbelievable and is completely unprecedented, which is why I say that you can't just completely rely on Justin Herbert's right arm to throw the ball. You need better, much more talent on the Chargers than just Justin Herbert to sort of elevate this squad. At least that's my takeaway from this game. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. But again, it's the Texans, they didn't really seem like that much of a threat going into this game, especially with how C.J. Stroud was playing in the last few weeks. And of course, while I will say that he didn't play awful in this game, it's not like he played completely out of this world, like how people were sort of expecting him to after that ridiculous rookie season. And with that in mind, this gave the Chargers a really good opportunity to win. Obviously, what killed the Chargers in this game was all of those interceptions. So that's my takeaway on this game. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And now let's see, what is the next game that we should go over? I think the next game that we should probably talk about should be the Ravens game between the Ravens and the Steelers. And I think what this game has sort of proven, one takeaway from this is that this cycle that the Steelers constantly go through, having these winning seasons and just not being able to do anything in the postseason, they have to stop, because this is already I want to say maybe the 6th time in the row that the Steelers end up making the playoffs, and they end up getting 0 wins to show for it in these playoffs. It's a little bit embarrassing, because they start out as one of the hottest, one of the best teams in the NFL, and then they close out the season as being one of the worst teams in the NFL. And I'm not trying to exaggerate. This team was, they started out really good, but then they ended up going on I want to say maybe a 6-game losing streak towards to cap off the end of the season. They lost to the Ravens, so that's 1 loss, and then they lost to the Bengals the week before. Then they lost to the Chiefs and the Ravens, and then the Eagles. So that's 5 straight losses in a row for this Steelers team, and it was really just absolutely disgusting the way that they ended up losing. And in the last 7 games, they ended up going 2-5, which is And the two wins that they got in those 2 weeks, they were against the Browns, so, rather a very bad team. The Browns are not good. And the Bengals, who have one of the worst defenses in all of the NFL. And even then, the Steelers still ended up splitting the series against the Browns. They ended up losing all the way back on the 21st of November. So this Steelers team and this cycle has just been constant throughout the last few years. Now, I don't really think you're going to fire Mike Tomlin, because despite everything that I said about, this whole cycle that the Steelers go through, I don't think you should fire a coach that knows how to win, especially with the lack of talent that this team has. You just need to figure out a good way to accumulate talent, maybe build around an actual young quarterback, and not work with somebody that's old and on the verge of retiring like Russell Wilson. Now, I do think that this season has sort of rejuvenated his career and how much time he actually has left in this league, but still, this is a cycle that the Steelers, they just can't keep doing. And obviously, as for the Ravens, this is just, a talented team doing what they need to get done. And I should also point out that the last year, the AFC teams that made it past the wild card round are the exact same AFC teams that made it past the wild card round this year. So the Texans, they made it past last year, the Ravens made it past last year, and the Bills, they were also able to make it past last year. So this is these are the same two teams that were dominant last year, and they're the same two teams, not the same two teams, the same four teams that were dominant last year back in the exact same position, only this time they're playing against different opponents in this year. Obviously, we know the Ravens, they played against the Kansas City Chiefs last year. Technically, the Chiefs, they played the Bills, and then the Ravens played the Houston Texans, I believe, and then the Chiefs and the Ravens ended up crossing paths in the AFC Championship game. So it looks like that story is going to somewhat repeat itself, except this time we're going to have a great quarterback duel between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Speaking of Josh Allen, I might as well go ahead and talk about the next game on this list, which is the Bills and the Broncos. And simply put, Josh Allen seems to be a quarterback that can win playoff games, and it doesn't really matter who's on the squad, right? Like, before, it was thought that, okay, Josh Allen is a little bit of a turnover machine, but it doesn't matter. He has some really good receivers like Stephon Diggs to help him in his gunslinging role. But now it's sort of without anybody on the team, and anyone noteworthy on the team, I should say, the Bills are still in the exact same spot that they've been able to be in before. And for a takeaway that I have for the Broncos is that they're right there. They just need a little bit more experience. They have the quarterback, and it seems like they have the receiving core that they need. Well, not really. They have a solid receiving core. They just need to get a little bit more dominant in the run game. And when they become a team that can run the ball really well, then they're going to be very dangerous. But again, same story with the Bills every single year. They're a competing team, and they're always going to be a competing team with Josh Allen, which is, I think, the biggest takeaway. The Bills are always going to be a team competing for the Super Bowl as long as they have Josh Allen playing like he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Next is the Eagles, and a takeaway for them in this Packers game that they played. I might as well use this one because that one's a little bit of a better picture. Now, the Eagles and their offense, they didn't really do much in this game, but neither did the Packers in this one. So I guess the biggest takeaway that I have is that the Packers are as limited to their successes as or will determine their successes by how well Jordan Love can play in these big games, because we saw how last year he was able to play rather solid up until the very end against the 49ers. Again, remember, the Packers, they ended up stunning the Cowboys and beating them in the wild card round. Then they had to play the Niners, and then they ended up losing in embarrassing fashion because Jordan Love threw a costly interception. So the way I see it, the Packers are only going to go as far as Jordan Love is able to take them. And this game was strictly on whether or not Jordan Love can have a good game. Throwing 3 interceptions and 0 touchdowns is not a winning formula for the Packers. And obviously, not really much that needs to be said about the Eagles because they sort of just handled business with Jordan Love playing bad. And again, it's just like not a very good situation to be in where you have to rely on this quarterback, and this quarterback has been rather shaky in these last few weeks and in the season overall. And it took him like through the last 7 games of the season, he did not throw an interception up until that game, which is really, really bad. And finally, I already gave my takeaway for the Rams game, but the last game that I have not given my takeaway from is the Commanders going up against the Bucks. And the key takeaway that I have in this one is that the Commanders have finally found their starting quarterback and their franchise quarterback that they've been looking for so long. And while I will say a lot of these games haven't been that dominant of a win, like, I mean, the Commanders in the last few games that they've played in, every single one of those games was really, really close. But it's all down to how the quarterback can play in these close moments that determine whether or not he is a franchise starting quarterback, right? I feel like a lot of people can agree on that. Any quarterback that can finish a game or can dig you out of a hole is a quarterback that you want to keep for a very long time. And they found that quarterback in Jaden Daniels. So that's my takeaway on this. And that's all that I have. Let me know in the comments if there is a takeaway that I missed, or maybe there is an even bigger takeaway that you guys have for this game that I haven't thought of. But that's all that I have for this third segment. So now we're going to go into the fourth segment where I just recap all of the NBA games that took place yesterday. I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.